Does her legend endure? We investigate.
The legend of the Loch Ness Monster has endured for hundreds of years. More than 1,000 eyewitnesses have seen it, many taking photographs and films.
We saw this great neck emerge from the water.
The skin was a rough textured skin, like an elephant skin. 26 people in all saw it that day.
But what's the truth behind one of the world's greatest myths? Is it possible that the Loch Ness Monster really exists? Loch Ness in Scotland is 35 kilometers long, 1.5 kilometers wide, and an incredible 230 meters deep. Loch is the Scottish word for lake. By volume, Loch Ness is the largest lake in the British Isles, and many people believe that it's a haven for aquatic dinosaurs, the lone survivors of the great dinosaur extinction 65 million years ago. There's never been any shortage of eyewitnesses offering evidence that the monster or monsters exist. Diver Robert Badger is one of them.
It was roughly 6 feet from top to bottom, and it was cylindrical. I only looked at it for a second or two, realised what it had to be, and surfaced as quickly as I could.
Val Moffat is a Lochside resident.
It must have been about 10 metres in length, very dark in colour.
David Monroe is a hotelier.
I'm quite convinced that what we did see was a living creature of some description.
Since the 1930s, there's been an average of 13 sightings a year, along with countless photographs and films that have captured suspicious shapes and unexplained speeding wakes in the loch. But now, detailed scientific analysis will shed new light on the images of Nessie, including this world-famous photograph from 1934. This picture from a quarter of a century later, and this film from the 1960s. New scientific theories could explain many of the reported sightings, and cameras can now go where no cameras have gone before. So what's really going on in the depths of Loch Ness? The Loch Ness Monster may first have been seen more than 1,000 years ago, in 565 AD. The missionary, St. Columba, supposedly confronted a monster that attacked one of his followers in the loch. He cried out, "Thou shalt go no further, nor touch the man. Go back with all speed." And the monster fled from the scene. Myth expert Miranda Althouse-Green believes that a real incident could have started the legend.
Most of the myths associated with the monster have some kind of grounding in reality. So these early Christian writers were probably seizing upon something that they'd heard about a large fish in the water or some commotion or something like that in the water and embroidered that.
It was centuries before the Loch Ness Monster resurfaced, but in the early 1930s, there were several dramatic sightings. On the 2nd of May 1933, 2 local hoteliers reported a whale-like creature in the loch to the local newspaper, the Inverness Courier. Two and a half months later, on the 22nd of July, holidaymakers George Spicer and his wife believed they'd seen a creature crossing the loch's south road. It was less than 50 meters in front of the car. The story spread like wildfire, and an army of journalists descended on the loch. The sightings continued, and within a year, an image of Nessie was captured in what became known as the surgeon's photo, so called because it was supposedly taken by respected surgeon Robert Wilson. Coming from a professional man with such unimpeachable credentials, the startling photograph had to be legitimate. It established the Loch Ness Monster as a worldwide phenomenon. The picture clearly showed the head and neck of a creature emerging from the waters of Loch Ness. It fueled speculation that Nessie, as she quickly became known, was a prehistoric creature. Perhaps the long-extinct plesiosaur, a huge aquatic dinosaur that could reach up to 10 meters in length. Nessie enthusiasts now had what they believed was a rock-solid piece of evidence. Over the next 50 years, other photographs came to light, but none as convincing. Then, in the early 1970s, an American Academy of Science expedition produced some specialist underwater photographs that shook the scientific establishment. First, there was the flipper, then the body and neck, and finally, the gargoyle head. Many believers were won over by these images, despite doubts in some quarters. But science needed more evidence before rewriting the history books. Adrian Shine, a skeptic and leader of a British team called the Loch Ness Project, has spent 30 years trying to find rational explanations for the monster sightings. He went back to basics by posing simple scientific questions about the biology and environment of Loch Ness.
Was there enough food in the loch in terms of fish to support large animals? What were the temperatures telling us? What was the environment itself telling us about what people were seeing?
Shine didn't search for a 10-meter-long prehistoric survivor. Instead, he looked for creatures just 1/4 millimeter in diameter. Zooplankton. A monster brood hiding out in the loch would need plenty of zooplankton to support plenty of fish, which in turn could support the large creatures. If there was no food chain, there could be no Loch Ness Monster. The depth to which sunlight travels down into the water offers a simple method of estimating the extent of the food chain. David Martin, a freshwater zoologist, uses a white plate known as a Secchi disc to test how far light penetrates into the water.
We're going to lose sight of it slowly, and then I pull it up, talking no more than 1, 2, 3 meters, 9 feet of water, so 9 to 10 feet, we lose clarity.
Suspended brown peat, washed into the loch from surrounding rivers, prevents light from penetrating more deeply. Green algae, the bottom rung of the food chain, can't thrive in such low-light conditions, and minimal algae means there's little food for the microscopic zooplankton to eat. This in turn means less food for small fish, and thus less food for any large predators. Nessie can't be the only one of its kind. The monster population must be large enough to breed generation to generation. But researchers have calculated that no more than 17 to 24 tons of fish live in the loch. That's surprisingly few for a lake this size, and probably only just enough to keep around 10 200-kilogram creatures alive. Plesiosaur expert Richard Forrest believes that would be too few animals to sustain a breeding colony.
30 to 40 would be the minimum size of a sustainable breeding population.
What's more, plesiosaurs would be easily spotted every day. Plesiosaurs breathe through their mouths and would need to surface in the loch every few hours.
An air-breathing animal living in Loch Ness will be coming up to the surface all the time. And if there was a population of plesiosaurs there, You would go there any day, and if you watched the loch, you'd see many sightings, because each one would have to come up for air several times during the day.
The case for Nessie being a plesiosaur looks very shaky. But can hundreds of eyewitnesses all be wrong? There's only one place to uncover the truth. We're about to dive deep into the murky, mysterious waters of Loch Ness. As deep as any camera has ever gone before, down to the very bottom, to Nessie's lair.
An Englishman abroad in the People's Republic of China.
See ya.
A country that's full of surprises.
What is that exactly? Oh, that's horrible. Beautiful.
Paul Merton in China.
I hope this isn't going to make me look silly.
A new series, Sunday at 9 on National Geographic Channel.
How'd you stop this thing?
It's amazing how many ways you can enjoy a sound. At Amplifon, we work with you to find the right hearing aid solution to suit your needs. Enjoy our exclusive free 30-day hearing aid trial. Call now on 08000 22 3355. Amplifon, bringing sound to life.
Experience the power of stealth. Gillette Fusion Power Stealth. Fusion power is so advanced, and you barely feel the blades. Turn it on. Soothing micropulses help you reduce friction and increase razor glide. Feel the difference for yourself. The comfort of 5 blades plus the precision of 1. Gillette Fusion Power Stealth.
More is our triple deal on car insurance. 1. With More Than, you could save £151 just by switching. 2. You can protect your maximum no claims bonus for the life of your policy. And 3. We will give you 10% discount when you call, and even more if you apply online. Call 0800 878787 for a quote, or visit us at morethan.com.
You know, I'm a sensible sort of bloke. Good job, lovely wife, 2 perfect kids. Jack, watch where you put that skateboard. It's just that we're a bit, well, messy when it comes to money. We've got the odd loan here, the odd credit card there. I just wish we could put it all in one place and not have to worry about it.
Thank you.
Now there's a loan company for people like you. If you're a homeowner, just call Picture on 0800 064 4500 and we could rearrange your credit into one affordable loan. You can borrow anything from £10,000 to £100,000, and with rates like these, you'll have more to spend on the really important things in life. At Picture, we don't fuss or patronise. We just help you live your life the way you want.
What I need is a loan company that's for people like me.
Ready, Chris? What you need, mate, is to talk to Picture.
Call Picture now on 0800 064 4500 and we'll sort out that loan for you too.
Enjoy an exclusive free 30-day hearing aid trial from Amplifon. Call now on 08000 22 3355. Amplifon, bringing sound to life.
Even animals have problems they need to overcome. Some more complex than others. But if they can't speak, how do we know what they're trying to say? How can we tell what's wrong? Meet Sarah Fisher, an animal behavior expert. She demonstrates some fascinating techniques as part of understanding just what it is that they need help with.
It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I'm really chuffed.
She also reveals some of the strangest methods in talking to animals. Part of Animal SOS, weeknights from 7 on Nat Geo Wild.
There's one big problem for people who believe a prehistoric monster lives in Loch Ness. Extinct prehistoric creatures don't just pop up unexpectedly. Or so the experts thought, until one day in 1938, when some South African fishermen caught a monster fish believed extinct for 80 million years. This is a coelacanth, a fish which swam in our oceans 360 million years ago. It's so old, it could be related to the first creatures that walked on land. Its pectoral and pelvic fins even have arm and leg-like movements. The Natural History Museum in London preserves a large number of fish species. Curator Oliver Crimmen looks after the exotic collection, which includes a coelacanth.
It's equivalent to finding a dinosaur alive, perhaps. There was no reason to believe that coelacanths were still on Earth.
It's a poor candidate to be the Loch Ness Monster, but its discovery gave heart to monster hunters. It was proof that supposedly extinct creatures can, occasionally, prove science wrong. Loch Ness is a far smaller area to search than the ocean that hid the coelacanth, but during the early years, the black, peaty waters hindered any investigation by divers. Monster hunters had to be content with film and photographs taken above the surface. But the arrival of sonar changed all that. Sound waves opened a new and clearer window onto this murky world.
As you can see, we don't have many fish. This is typical of Loch Ness.
If there are some unknown giant creatures hiding in the loch, surely sonar will provide the evidence for them. But sonar does have limitations. Its range is relatively short, and rather like shining a giant torch into the loch, only creatures crossing the beam will be visible. With 7.5 cubic kilometers of water to search, it's a daunting task. But that hasn't stopped many sonar expeditions trying to solve the mystery. The biggest was Operation Deep Scan in 1987, which deployed boats across the entire width of the loch. Each boat was fitted with sonar to give the most comprehensive sonar sweep ever conducted on the loch. And before long, there was an exciting discovery which made headline news.
The team of scientists said tonight they'd made sonar contact with a large unidentified object. They described it as of unusual strength and size.
Urged on by their find, Operation Deep Scan returned to the same spot. Could they have found real evidence at last? They rescanned the area, but eventually discovered that the reading came from debris on the floor of the loch. Their hopes were all but dashed. The biggest sonar sweep on the loch failed to find any real evidence of large creatures, and yet the sightings have continued. So could a monster be hiding somewhere sonar can't reach, perhaps in a cave deep down in the loch? There are myths that the loch hides what some have called Nessie's lair, and a couple of years after the Deep Scan survey, a new discovery suggested that such a haven could indeed exist. Local boatman George Edwards used a digital echo sounder and spotted one rogue reading far deeper than Loch Ness's official depth of 230 meters.
We're getting rough into the area now. As I say, I've seen it a couple of times over the years, but it's very, very hard to pinpoint it exactly.
As he circles, the loch gets deeper and deeper. Finally, the sonar hits 800 feet, around 245 meters. Now that we've located it, we can send down a special underwater camera designed by the Loch Ness Project to investigate Nessie's lair.
We're dropping the camera down the side wall, and we're looking at the consistency of the wall of Urquhart Bay to see whether it could harbour the sort of folklore references to caves.
After several minutes, the camera hits the bottom of the loch. Down here, it's normally pitch black and just above freezing.
Right. Right, find some caves.
We're hoping to find a cave or a shelf that could hide Nessie from sonar sweeps.
Scattered rocks, nice steep clay wall.
Despite the myth of Nessie's lair, the bottom of the loch is very level. There's not a cave or an indentation in sight. This isn't surprising, because the rocks here are extremely hard. The Great Glen Fault was created by tremendous heat and pressure during the collision of continents that formed Scotland millions of years ago. Loch Ness was then gouged into today's U-shaped valley by a series of glaciers. The last melted 11,000 years ago. Geologist Stuart Munro is an expert on Scotland's topography.
If we'd been around here about 11,000 years ago, we'd have been seeing a glacier that was retreating.
The freshwater loch was not formed until 10,000 years ago. So how could a population of prehistoric monsters have been living there for over 65 million years? Could the monster possibly have come in from the sea after the end of the Ice Age? There is evidence of a massive flood around this time. Could it have washed Nessie into the loch from the sea and left it stranded when the flood waters retreated? The flood came from here, a valley named Glen Roy, 30 kilometers south of Loch Ness. These ancient shoreline markings prove that it was once full of water. A glacier acted as a natural dam, holding the water in until the day the ice melted. The equivalent of a third of the volume of Loch Ness itself came from Glen Roy, washing right over Loch Ness and rushing on to the sea at a point where the city of Inverness now stands. The flooding of this narrow strip of land between Loch Ness and the sea could have allowed Nessie and her brood to swim in from the ocean and make the loch their new home. Hypothetically, it's possible. But did it happen? In 1994, researchers took core samples of the mud at the bottom of the loch. These cross-sections of layer upon layer of sediment provided an amazing record of the last 10,000 years. They revealed climatic change, acid rain, and even the effects of the Chernobyl nuclear accident. But they showed no evidence at all of any salt water entering Loch Ness since the last ice age 10,000 years ago.
There's still no convincing evidence that the sea has been in after the last ice age.
No sign of salt water means it's impossible that creatures could have entered from the ocean during a flood. The only other way in is at the other end of the loch, up the wide but shallow River Ness. This is the way that salmon, the occasional seal, and some more unusual creatures have reached the loch. In 1932, a Miss MacDonald saw a crocodile-like creature swimming in the river. It had a short neck, long snout, and possibly even tusks. Her sighting led naturalist Adrian Shine to propose an astonishing solution for the mystery. He suggested the monster could be this mammoth 3-meter-long creature. Shine, a well-known Loch Ness investigator, believes that some of the monster sightings may have been enormous fish, ones like the Baltic sturgeon. Oliver Crimmen at London's Natural History Museum has a preserved giant sturgeon.
Here's the head of a very large sturgeon. To give you an idea of the proportions, this one would have been over 10 feet long. Of the potential candidates for a Loch Ness monster, I think the sturgeon is probably the best.
Records show that sturgeons do sometimes travel along Scotland's coast. And in 1871, a huge sturgeon was caught by a fisherman near the entrance to the River Ness that feeds the loch. But Shine doesn't think these monster fish provide the total answer. Sturgeons are slow-swimming fish, so they couldn't be the cause of the many unexplained speeding wakes seen on the loch. Steve Feltham is an independent Nessie researcher.
And this thing just went straight back through against the waves, as if a torpedo went through there.
But there are possible scientific explanations for these. Boat turbulence tends to remain on the water surface for some time, and ships pass out of sight quickly due to the narrowness of the loch, leaving their wakes with apparent lives of their own. And once a wake is up and running, the combination of shadows from the surrounding steep hills and dark lake waters can all too easily create monster-like shapes. But there's one film of a wake on the loch that's confounded even the skeptics for over 40 years. The so-called Dinsdale film, named after the man who took it, is still regarded by some as the best film evidence of a prehistoric monster in Loch Ness.
There's no food, no medical supplies. The air is running out. You're still alive, but for how long? Trapped. A brand new series. A train derails, slamming into an apartment block. You're one of hundreds trapped inside the wreckage as the rescue team battle to get you out before the building collapses. Trapped. Osaka train crash. Brand new to National Geographic Channel. Monday at 9.
Here's the news story about the language of color.
Ferrier Hair Color by L'Oreal with vibrant, multifaceted 3D color.
It's not just the color that's great, it's the conditioning.
Ferrier's new highlight enhancing conditioner accentuates every facet of your shade for intense shine.
My take? Love it.
Ferrier Hair Color by L'Oreal Paris.
Because we're worth it.
Barney loved his owner. He thought his owner would always love him. Hungry, frightened, and alone, Barney is just one of thousands of animals taken in by the Blue Cross every year because nobody wants them. Will you give just £2 a month to the Blue Cross? Will you help save the life of a homeless animal like Barney? He relies on us now, but we rely on you. £2 a month can help us go on caring day after day until we find just the right home for Barney, however long it takes.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry.
Okay then.
Sorry, we'll look at the...
Okay, bye-bye.
Please help by calling 0800 1 385 615 or visit our website and give £2 a month. We're counting on your support.
Two for one at Specsavers.
Fabulous U-Curl. Now, in a single stroke, you can create salon perfect curls. Fabulous U-Curl. Perfect curls in a single stroke.
Will you give just £2 a month to the Blue Cross? Please help by calling 0800 1 385 615. We're counting on your support.
Inspired by the legend, Tim Dinsdale, a young English aeronautical engineer, arrived at Loch Ness on the morning of the 23rd of April 1960, armed with a 16mm film camera. As he drove along the loch, Dinsdale saw an object speeding through the water. He studied it through binoculars and became convinced that it was a monstrous creature powering along the surface.
I saw the back there. It was the back of a very big animal, a huge thing.
Dinsdale captured its speeding wake on his movie camera. This short burst of film became a compelling part of the Loch Ness legend. It was considered so puzzling that it was even analysed by the Joint Air Reconnaissance Intelligence Centre, or JARIC, Britain's foremost photographic experts. The report concluded that it was probably animate. In other words, not a man-made object. The report from such an authoritative source ensured the Dinsdale film a place in Loch Ness mythology. But there's a puzzle surrounding this film. A minute white spot appears on the picture. Monster fans dismiss this as simply a fault on the original celluloid film, perhaps a surface grain of dust as the film was developed. But skeptics, like the people at the Loch Ness Project who first identified the spot on a modern computer, claim it means the footage is not evidence of a monster. We tracked down one of the men involved in the original 1966 government analysis, and today David Oxley will attempt to resolve this 40-year dispute once and for all with the power of modern technology. Is the object in the Dinsdale film really indisputable evidence of the Loch Ness monster? For the detailed analysis, he's recruited forensic image analysts Jackie Pestel and Terry Foley. The team concentrates on the sequence in which the would-be monster travels right across the loch. Foley begins by importing the film, now on videotape, into his computer, then improving the contrast and enlarging the image. He then isolates several individual frames from different parts of the film. Jackie Pestel examines them through a stereoscopic device that merges two frames together. If the tiny white speck is a fault in the film grain, it will appear in only one of the frames. But if it's a real component of the object speeding through the loch, it should show up on both frames. And that would make it stand out from the background in a 3D effect created within the stereoscopic viewer.
This light tone is apparent on more than one frame of imagery, and it's apparent on the two frames that we selected.
4 decades after this film first caused a sensation, computer analysis finally proves that the white fleck cannot be a film fault. And if it's not a fleck of film grain, it may leave just one answer.
And this leads me to the opinion that I'm looking at something that is actually there all the time. And the only thing that would be there all the time would be a helmsman. It would be the person actually steering this small boat across the loch.
So after 40 years, has one of the key men involved in the original analysis changed his mind?
It's my opinion that the object is inanimate and in fact is much more consistent with the shape of a boat than perhaps it is of the Loch Ness monster.
It took 40 years to solve this mystery, and science is constantly re-examining other evidence of the monster's existence. 2 of the most persistent pieces of evidence are this 1955 image of Nessie's hump, and the most celebrated of all Nessie images, the surgeon's photo. But modern-day investigations can at last uncover the real stories behind the most famous pictures of the Loch Ness monster. Dick Rayner is one of the amateur detectives seeking the truth about the legend of Loch Ness. Rayner was just 17 years old when he began his quest. He joined up with a team of monster hunters calling themselves the Loch Ness Investigation Bureau. For years, Rayner believed that he'd caught the monster on film. This footage apparently shows it powering through the waters of the loch. But his dream was shattered 14 years later when he saw a similar wake on the water.
I could see, because it was only 100 yards away, that it was actually a family of mergansers with a mother bird and 7 or 8 chicks running along the surface and then slowing down.
These flying ducks destroyed Dick's faith in the legend and sparked his desire to prove that many so-called sightings are nothing more than the activities of local birds, animals, or boats. This telling bit of footage from Rayner's archive shows what appears to be a long, humped back leading to a head and neck. But watch for a few seconds, and you realize it's actually a flock of birds on the loch. Determined to find out the truth, Rayner has spent 20 years examining some of the classic Nessie images. One of his key targets was this photograph of two large humps in the water. Bank manager Peter McNabb took the picture near Urquhart Castle in 1955.
I noticed that there were two other lines in the water behind the one that the monster's travelling along. And when I joined them up, I see that these lines are actually converging on a point. And that made me wonder if these could be the waves left behind a boat.
In this simple test, we place a camera on the same side of the loch as the McNabb photo was taken. From this viewpoint, we can see how wakes look after a boat has passed by. We move our boat towards the castle on the same trajectory as shown in the photograph. Within minutes, our wake bears a remarkable resemblance to the humps of a creature on the loch. The famous 1955 McNabb photograph may simply show the wake of a boat long gone from the picture. Our Loch Ness investigator has also examined more modern images of the monster in the loch. In the year 2000, Bobby Pollock, a postman from Scotland, was walking on a hill high above the loch when he saw something move hundreds of meters below. His video camera captured a small black object moving erratically through the water. Could this be evidence of a monster? Pollock enjoyed a brief spell of fame after his video clip was widely shown on television. But when Rayner analyzed the video in detail, he found what he believes is a vital clue. On the right side of the photo are what appear to be two canoes on the shore of the loch. Could the mystery object simply be one of the canoeists swimming, perhaps wearing a black wetsuit?
One thing that makes me think it could be a swimmer is that there seems to be a hint of arm movements in some of the bits of the film, as if someone's swimming along on their back.
But one picture that's always been hard to explain away is the one at the very heart of the myth, the so-called surgeon's photo.
The surgeon's photograph is the icon. It is what most people see as Nessie. It is their Nessie. It's instantaneously recognizable, but there is still an enigma attached to it.
In the 1930s, the surgeon's photo caused a sensation. Not only did it seem to prove that Nessie existed, it came from an impeccable source, a much respected doctor. But the true story behind this picture is one of greed, deceit, and a desire for revenge. In 1933, the seeds of this deceit were sown when an English newspaper hired self-styled big game hunter Marmaduke Wetherell to hunt down the Loch Ness monster. Within days, Wetherell claimed to be hot on its trail. He'd found monster-sized footprints on the shore of the loch. The Daily Mail announced his triumph to the world, and late in 1933, casts of the footprints were sent to London's Natural History Museum for examination. Just a week later, however, the museum produced a damning verdict. Experts there could find no difference between the monster footprints and those made by a hippopotamus. Wetherell had tried to fool the world by creating footprints with a silver hippo foot ashtray, a souvenir from his hunting days. Disgraced and bent on revenge, Wetherell returned to the loch with a model of a monster. It was made from a toy submarine with a plastic dinosaur's head and neck attached, and was the handiwork of his stepson, Christian Sperling.
He phoned up his stepson Christian, and said, okay, if they want their monster, I'll give them their monster.
But Wetherell didn't just photograph the model on Loch Ness. He went one step further. His hippo foot hoax had ensured that no one would believe him if he produced the new picture. So he persuaded Robert Wilson, a respected London-based surgeon, to join in the hoax. Wilson, who loved practical jokes, agreed to pretend to the press that he had taken the picture. The hoax was a runaway success, and the surgeon's photo was accepted as proof of Nessie's existence. Amazingly, the real story remained a secret for 50 years.
The true stories of this hoax was known amongst small pockets of people, but it never got into the wider general public domain.
But how did a 60-centimeter high model fool the world? Martin demonstrates by placing a similarly sized model in the loch. The photo that first appeared in the newspapers was cropped. The unedited version shows part of the shoreline, indicating that the model was placed near the shore itself. So we follow suit. The original photo shows a pattern of distinctive ripples. Now, we also have ripples. When Martin is happy the conditions are similar, he takes a photo. And with a bit of computer trickery, we add grain and black and white. Side by side, the two photographs are very similar. It seems that the hoax was incredibly simple, but effective. The vital cornerstone of the legend has been exposed, but many seemingly mysterious sightings remain unexplained. However, a little-known phenomenon in lake water physics, a rare and unusual underwater wave, may hold the key to unlocking the truth of the Loch Ness legend once and for all. Helen Ross, a psychologist and expert on illusions, believes the myth is so powerful that people may see ordinary objects in the water but convince themselves they're seeing the monster.
When something really ambiguous is there, people often don't know what they're seeing, and they can see all sorts of strange things. It's a bit like seeing faces in the fire, or ink blots appearing as all sorts of creatures.
Helen will replicate an illusionary experiment conducted by the Loch Ness Project a few years ago, but with an added twist.
We want to do the experiment in two places, both in Loch Ness and at Airdrie Loch in Stirling University, in order to see if people respond differently in the two places.
In both lochs, she'll float a large wooden pole. The test will reveal if people turn this ordinary object into a monster sighting. We'll record the reactions of the eyewitnesses with our cameras. Then later, Helen will reveal the hoax and get the unsuspecting tourists to draw what they saw.
People might begin to put their own imagination onto it, and they might see it as a monster, particularly at Loch Ness.
It's essential that the wooden pole doesn't have any monstrous features at all.
It's important to have a simple object and not an actual fake monster, so that we can see whether people embellish the object with their own imagination.
As the first boat of the day turns up, we lie in wait for the unsuspecting tourists. They think the camera crew is here to film the bagpiper. Soon a crowd gathers to watch the piper play. In the background, our fake Nessie raises its head many times. At last, several people spot something in the water. Helen goes to question them.
What do you think it is, then?
I think I saw Nessie's kids' toys coming up and down the river, the lake. It's clearly that.
Some kind of underwater machine, I don't know, a little submarine, I don't know.
Looks like Nessie's breathing pipe. I think he's just come up to see what the noise is about.
The next tourist, a young boy, rushed down from the roadside after seeing the pole in the water.
I thought I saw Nessie, but it turned out to be a log once I got a closer look.
Ah, but your first thought was that it was Nessie.
I'm a firm believer in Nessie.
Most people drew an object that resembled the pole, but the boy added a body to it. If, as this demonstration indicates, 1 person out of 10 will embellish a sighting, it's easy to see how evidence could appear to accumulate. It all comes down to expectation.
There's no food, no medical supplies. The air is running out. You're still alive, but for how long? Trapped. A brand new series. A train derails, slamming into an apartment block. You're one of hundreds trapped inside the wreckage as the rescue team battle to get you out before the building collapses. Trapped. Osaka train crash. Brand new to National Geographic Channel, Monday at 9.
Jibber jabber, you ain't hurt, you pathetic. If I ever catch you acting like a crazy fool again, you're gonna meet my friend Pain. Snickers, get some nuts.
Being refused credit for a car can really get you down, but now there's someone you can call. We'll take that old car as full deposit and give you a huge choice of vehicles from small cars to 4x4s. All cars are thoroughly checked, and there's helpful, friendly staff to make sure your payments are easily affordable. So if you want to put a smile back on your face, you can. Just call 0800 612 1838. Visit youcancarcredit.co.uk or text YouCan1 to 80086 and we'll call you back.
At Preferential, we specialize in travel insurance, offering basic to fully comprehensive cover for the discerning or seasoned traveler. Call us on 0870 600 7766 or visit us at preferential.co.uk to organise your passport to more carefree travel.
Do your windows and doors look like this? Or this? Or even these? With winter approaching, thanks to SafeStyle UK, there's no need. Because right now, if you buy the windows and doors for the front of the house, they'll give you the back absolutely free. Or buy the downstairs and get the upstairs free. You choose. There's flexible monthly payments to suit you. They'll even beat any genuine like-for-like quote whether you buy one window or door or 1,000. You can even buy now and pay next year. For your free quotation, call SafeStyle UK on 0800 106 107 now.
When it's a bright, sunny day, most of us prefer to be in the shade. Nationwide offer a huge range of sun awnings in a variety of colours, widths and sizes. The awnings come with an automatic controller that's so easy to use that even drummer can do it.
Another product from Nationwide is their exterior conservatory blinds. The external fabric helps to reduce the temperature inside your conservatory and can be automatically controlled. Keep cool this summer with these two fantastic products from Nationwide.
Ring 0800 600 777 today for a free brochure.
We take our fake Nessie to Stirling University to really test our hypothesis. The team sets up near a bridge frequently used by students. Down below in the water, we raise a smaller pole, in keeping with the smaller size of the loch here.
Yeah, what do you see?
I'm not sure what it is. Looks sort of like a stick. What is it?
A stick, bobbing up and down.
It looks like a stick.
Something popping up, like a stick or something?
A psychological demonstration like this is never definitive, but it does indicate that people might go to Loch Ness with expectations, and that these could affect how some of them perceive simple objects.
It's not surprising that out of all the thousands of people who stand around trying to see something, one or two of them will be genuinely convinced that they have seen the monster.
Skeptics, such as the members of the Loch Ness Project, believe that the unique topography of Loch Ness may have given rise to some of the sightings. Loch Ness researcher Adrian Shine suggests there are two factors which help to create illusions on the loch. First, the loch is like a wind tunnel because it's aligned with the prevailing southwest to northeast winds. And second, because of its great depth, the loch water never gets too warm in summer or too cold in winter. In fact, the loch never freezes. In winter, the relatively warm water meets colder air, producing unexpected mirages on the surface. And the winds of late summer meeting the warmer, less dense top layer of the water can induce an extraordinary process called a seiche. A seiche, as demonstrated in this tank, is created when the red upper warm layer mixes with the blue colder layer. This mixing process is kick-started by the wind to produce a rolling underwater wave that drives the surface waters along the loch. This seesaw motion is almost invisible to the human eye as the warm layer passes over the cold water underneath. The top layer takes about 30 hours to travel the length of the loch. Then, once it reaches the far end, it bounces back, this time traveling against the wind. Debris, such as a log carried by the top layer of water, will therefore appear to be swimming against the wind. This unique footage clearly shows a log swimming along a seiche.
So I might see an object on Loch Ness and think, well, that's a log. And then I see that it's swimming into the wind. So I've rationalized that because it's moving against the wind, it's swimming, hence animate.
Shine believes that sightings of logs and other debris moving in this apparently lifelike way have triggered many false monster reports. Logs flow into the loch from 6 rivers and are pushed towards the center by an underwater current called the Langmuir circulation. The logs are then in position to be picked up by a seiche as the wind begins to blow down the lake. But could people really mistake a moving log for a monster? One way of testing that theory is to drag a log through the water on the end of a rope. Many sightings mention humps, while others talk of heads and necks. For this test, Adrian Shine picks a log at random. In the right light, and with a chop on the water, our Loch Ness monster is revealed in all its glory. Many modern eyewitness sightings may well be the result of animals swimming, boat wakes, large fish, or logs. Yet the legend has persisted for year after year. But Dr. Luigi Picardi, an Italian specialist in Mediterranean geology, has developed another theory to explain some of the older sightings on the loch. He thinks they could have come from a more unusual source: earthquakes. Picardi believes that seismic activity could have laid the foundations for the legend of the Loch Ness monster. He contends that seismic activity under a lake might produce a disturbance on the surface that could be mistaken for a monster. Picardi is currently investigating ancient Greek temples, and he thinks there's more to ancient mythology, Greek, Scottish, or otherwise, than meets the eye.
You find that many of the effects described in mythology can be related to real effects during strong earthquakes.
Picardi believes that his theories are not just applicable to ancient Mediterranean sites, they can also be linked to water legends. And some geologists believe that an earthquake in 1991 in Guatemala offers evidence to back up his theory. Scientists seeking evidence about the ancient Mayan civilization witnessed a local earthquake which produced a disturbance in a nearby lake. The seismic shock produced a wave formation with close similarities to serpent myths passed down in local legend. Picardi thinks that similar seismic activity could have caused sightings at Loch Ness. Loch Ness lies directly along the Great Glen Fault Line, created by the collisions of continents that formed Scotland 400 million years ago. However, the only record of earthquake-induced water disturbance happened over 200 years ago, when Loch Ness was rocked by a major earthquake. The quake was centered in Lisbon in Portugal, more than 1,500 kilometers away.
Reports state that a wave about 2 or 3 feet in height was seen travelling up and down the loch.
Roger Musson, principal seismologist at the British Geological Survey, is skeptical about this theory. Despite proof that tremors can cause commotion in the loch, Musson believes there's too little activity in the area itself.
One thing that one can say definitely is that whatever the cause of monster sightings in Loch Ness might be, earthquakes is definitely not it.
But Picardi disagrees and suggests that seismic activity around the town of Inverness, where the bridge has even been earthquake-proofed because of recurrent tremors, could affect Loch Ness, just 16 kilometers away. He's planning a detailed seismic survey in search of evidence for his theory. We've established that many sightings on the loch can be explained by natural phenomena. Waves, birds, mammals such as seals, and large fish such as the Baltic sturgeon may have helped to prolong the myth. And underwater seiches could have made debris such as logs appear to be mysterious, large humped creatures. No bones or carcasses have ever been found, and there seems to be an overwhelming case that Nessie is merely a myth, a legend kept alive by people anxious to believe that mysteries exist within our natural world.
We have a wish to explore, we have a wish to find things that are unknown. We are attracted by mysteries. We are a very curious species.
But maybe, one day, the loch will reveal a monster species long thought to be extinct and confound science once again.